Hey, everybody. I am Kat Margulis, and I'm the host of The Power of Story. And as a longtime journalist, author, and book coach, I tend to see story everywhere I go. And in recent years, I've had the opportunity to experience how story can transform lives and businesses. And that's what I want to explore with you through this series is how you can create the life, business, and legacy of your dreams through story. And today I'm really excited to have with me Lisa Simone Richards. And Lisa is a PR and visibility strategist for online coaches who want to get seen everywhere. Through her workshops, masterclasses, and mentorship program, her clients learn the lather, rinse, repeat formula for more visibility, which makes them more sales. They go from invisible to in demand, getting interviewed on top podcasts, partnering with big names in their industry, and building their authority expert status, getting featured on major media like Fox, NBC, Forbes, Inc., and more. Thank you, Lisa, for being on this show. I am really excited to chat with you about visibility and publicity and how to get noticed in this crowded space today. So thank you for being here.
So excited to be here. Our names have kind of danced around each other for I almost want to say decades at this point. So it's great to have an opportunity to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I reached out because I was blown away by the impact that you had for one of my clients. And I know she got great publicity and media attention for her and her book after working with you. And it seemed like it happened overnight. And I'm curious, it's twofold. First of all, how did you get here? And how did you attain this magic formula you have, it seems, for getting what seems like instantly famous?
Yeah, it's one of those things that we just all have our innate gifts. And me getting into publicity, I can think back to when I was, something around 3 years old, and there's a picture of me sitting in the phone holding, or picture in the snow, holding a phone. Fast forward to when I was 12 years old, I was getting my name published every summer in a local reading competition. I got my first letter to the editor published in a magazine. Fast forward to 18, I remember images of myself on camera interviewing on behalf of an organization I was a part of. PR has just always innately been a part of me, and storytelling and getting out there and using my voice has been something I've always authentically done. So it's so powerful that that's what I can actually do for a living now, because it is so authentically me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So cool. So cool. And yeah, it seems like it's harder than ever to stand out from the crowd. You've got everything from TikTok to Netflix binges. I've been talking with a lot of people in publishing about getting your books noticed, but you're competing against Netflix binging and not to mention social media and social media algorithms. So everything is competing for audience attention. What's the secret to getting you and your story noticed in today's crowded media space?
When you talk about media, there's so many different perspectives I want to go through from there. So we have more platforms available, and I'm always so grateful for other types of media. When you think about, I categorize them as there are 3 types of media in my world. You've got social media, which thank goodness we have an opportunity to say what we want, how we want, when we want on our own platform. We can have direct message conversations with prospective clients on the back end. That didn't exist before. And when you think about social media, it does make you special. Anybody can open up an account. Everybody is doing it. So like you said, it is difficult to stand out. Paid media, another fantastic way to be able to get your message out there, because, I think about what advertising looked like in the 80s and the 90s, and it was kind of like throwing spaghetti at a wall, hoping that the right person saw it, because you could only generalize, or you can only get so specific story with it. Putting up a billboard, just fingers crossed the person has a car and they're driving by. But when we think about advertising today, we can go on to Facebook and we can say, I'm looking for a female between these ages in this location with these interests. It's amazing how concentrated we can be with that now. But again, I've never opened up Facebook thinking, hey, I wonder what ads are going to be served to me. I'm looking to see what my friends and my family are saying. And an ad has to work really hard to hook my attention and distract me. So, I think one of the ways we truly can stand out is with what I consider to be the 3rd type of media, earned media. How can we leverage someone else's platform, somebody who already has a following behind them, ideally people who are our ideal clients, of course. And then the thing that's going to make you stand out, coming back to your original question, is how are we creating value for them? Because the thing that I see the most over and over again, literally consistently for over 20 years of being in the PR industry, is that people just want to talk about themselves day in, day out. Here's who I am, here's what I do, this is my story, let's see if someone's going to give me a free advertisement about it. And that's one of the most challenging things with working with clients, because I have to come in with that reframe of, hey, guess what? If you just want to make it the you show, you can buy an advertisement for that. But when you think about how can I come at this opportunity with value? How can I make sure that anybody who is consuming this content is leaving richer than they came, by way of also boring somebody else's audience? So I'm fast forwarding the process and speeding up getting in front of people, and also fast forwarding building that know, like, and trust process, because if I get on someone else's platform, their audience trusts them already, and that naturally is going to extend to me because I've been invited to be on their platform. So I think I kind of gave you two answers in one, fingers crossed, hopefully.
That's a lot. That's a lot of gold there.
I know, I go really quickly. We're on our second cup of coffee. How we roll.
Stay with us, people. And so, yeah, when it comes to appealing for audience attention, we're talking a lot about story in so many different ways, like the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell others, the story for fiction or nonfiction, story in business. For publicity, when it comes to appealing for audience attention, what are the keys to crafting the most compelling publicity story? Or is there one?
No, I think that's a really good question. I think I'm very much in stage land because I was on stage delivering a presentation for the first time in a while. And I think depending on the context that we're coming from this from, with just what's landing with me first, from a storytelling perspective, is how can you, number one, be relatable with the person on the other side? Like if they're looking at you like you're high up on some pedestal and they can't relate to you, like the story isn't going to connect as much. So where's that opportunity to show how relatable you are? And then if it's from an education perspective, which it is for a lot of my clients, because they are looking to build that authority expert status, they're looking to enhance their credibility. How can it be a story around here's how we can relate to one another, and here's what I've learned, and here's how I am where I am now. So if you want to, I don't want to say get to where I am, but if you want to have a similar experience or similar results, I'm somebody that you can trust because I get where you are, and now this is where I am, and this is what I did, and if you want to follow along, come hang out with me. So I think from a PR perspective, and again, like I said, I'm very much thinking about delivering a talk from a stage right now, having those layers of credibility, that of relatability, I get you, and then here's where I am now, feel free to follow me if you want similar results. I think those are two things that really land in the world of storytelling, and they keep people hooked.
I love that because I'm working with people now too that are kind of on that journey, and I think they're landing there, right? But I think initially they're like they want to come out polished and expert and kind of like this, but it's not really authentic. It's not connection building, and so yeah, like I love that it gets to be a combination of that, and you got to bring the relatability to bring the audience, the reader, whoever in.
Yeah, even when I think about when I worked with a speaking coach years ago, one of the first things that he shared with us, and I think this will be relevant to a conversation like the one we're having on this interview series, is when you're talking from the stage, like it's not the purpose of overloading people with information, giving them all this content and all the steps that they can do, which is exactly where I want to go. I am such a tactical, mechanical person. I just want to be like, hey, I'm Lisa, this is a little bit of me. Okay, let's get to the point. But one of the things I learned is during, when you're stepping on stage, for any budding speakers, this is a great one. Like literally the first 2 minutes of your talk have nothing to do with facts and stuff. Like get into story. How can you share a relatable story where the audience is going to see what you see, smell what you smelled in that moment, hear what you hear? Like how can you describe things in vivid detail so that they're there, that they're invested, that they're following the arc of a story? Like, who's the hero we're rooting for? What's the obstacle that came up against them? How did they get to the other side? Like all the movies we go to are pretty much the same. They follow that arc. It's just different characters. So how can you bring that into the education and the content that you're sharing? Because when you have story, people are way more invested. They're staying hooked. They're less likely to get distracted by what's on their phone. So that storytelling element, don't lose sight of how powerful it is. Even if it's not like the nitty gritty of what you're talking about, that's what's going to captivate and hold someone's attention to get to that content later on.
I love that. I love that. That was great. Thank you so much. And well, and you might have answered this, but I'll ask this question anyway, in case there's something you want to add. So you help others gain media attention. And so media outlets in our way are their audience and their ideal client. What does that audience want?
It depends on who that audience is, 100%. Like when you're pitching to a media outlet, that first audience you have to get through, if you will, is the producer, it's the editor, it's the person who's the gatekeeper to decide, is this person going to get access? And again, bringing it back to that first mistake we were talking about, is so many people just make it about themselves. Like if you're sending an email and every paragraph begins with I, me, my, can I be on your show? Guess what? Their eyes are going to glaze over, they're going to get bored, and they're going to go to the next one. You're going to end up in the trash, delete. So when you can lead with, your audience is looking for this, and here's how I can support them getting there, that's what's going to hook that person's attention. So that's just the first audience you got to get through. Now, once you get that, yes, your audience, if it will, shifts into, okay, the people who are watching this, the people who are listening to this, what do they care about? How can you step into the shoes of where they're at in this moment in time? Because maybe in your head, you're like, I'm launching this thing, or I'm doing, nobody else cares. With love. You're the only person in that conversation. So what is the conversation this other person is in, and how can you connect to them where they're at? I think as business owners, it can be so challenging for us because we're so in what we do, but like we're the only ones who are here in these trenches in our teams. Like we have to think about, where is my ideal client coming from, and how can I make sure that I'm relating to what's relevant for them in this moment?
Oh, I love that. I'm like, my head's spinning on everything I get to do after this call. I really love that distinction of, like, you have a conversation and nobody's in that conversation with you, and they're in a conversation. And what is the conversation that they're in that you can speak into? I really love that. That's gorgeous.
There are two things I want to bring up with that. One is something I learned in PR school, and the other, I'm going to butcher the context of it, but we'll try. I remember my first weeks of PR school, and our instructor, Kayleen Morgan, she said, nobody is going to care about your brand or business as much as you do. And in that moment, I felt so stung. I'm like, I just spent a lot of money to come here. I'm a budding, excited student. You're going to drop that on us? But I think that's the sentence that's truly served me most from that education. And just remembering, literally, no one cares about your brand or business as much as you do. You might think it's the most interesting thing in the world, but other people literally don't. I think this is one of the areas I butt heads with my clients the most, because they're like, no, my story. I'm like, literally nobody cares, just you. That's not a nice thing to have to tell people. So learning that lesson was pivotal for me in the way that I like communicate and share things with other audiences, because I have to remember, no one cares about the Lisa show. They're into everyone's favorite radio station. What's in it for me? WIIFM. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing, gosh, someone is going to know this analogy. They're going to know where it's from. And when you do, DM me on Instagram at Lisa Simone Richards and be like, I'm going to correct you because you butchered that. It's fine. My feelings are not hurt. But I remember hearing some sort of story along the lines where, a class of, I think was university students, was in a room with their prof on the first day. And the prof asked something along the lines of like, how many experiences are we in right now? And somebody was like, oh, one, like we're all in this room. And there was a distinction that as a professor, I'm having experience, you're having experience. The person beside you is having a whole nother experience. Like we all have different things going on in our minds. So we can all be in the same place at the same time, experiencing the same interactions in front of us, but how we're experiencing that moment is different from person to person. So really thinking into like the pulse of what is our other people, what the moment they're in is going to help create that connection rather than just being in your own perspective.
I love that. I love that. That's brilliant. It's an extra step. It's an investment, but I get, it totally
that's
pays
the step
off.
that the people we are looking up to have taken.
Yeah,
like that's the step that most people are missing. So you can choose to look at that from a distance, but if you want to see what they all have in common and why they're connecting and why their products and sales are going well, then that's the thing that they have in common that maybe some other people may not be doing.
Yeah, love it. Love it. There's always a new platform, a new media outlet, a new audience on the rise. I'm even looking at my kids, and they're 3 steps ahead of me on the new social media platforms that they're on. In your experience, like, where should people be placing their attention and their time, and when it comes to carving out a space for them and their expertise?
I have such a defined answer to this. It's probably going to go across the grain for most people. I wish people would stop pissing their time away learning the next platform and learn the strategies that translate from platform to platform. It really irritates me, to be super honest, to see how much everyone's like, oh my God, I have to learn everything about TikTok. Everyone was on Pinterest before and then on Instagram. Guess what? Who remembers MySpace? my space story? Who's still marketing using Vine? Who's using Periscope? Everything's going to change. Facebook is on the outs. Like, get over this. I need to be on the latest. Like, what was everyone on last year? Clubhouse? Like,
Yes.
get over being on the latest shiny object syndrome. Learn the strategies and tactics that are going to work from platform to platform to platform. I think one of the really interesting things about my evolution as a publicist over the last 20 years, and like literally this is all I've ever done besides fitness. Like, if publicity fell off the radar, I don't know how I would eat. No, I'd go into hair and makeup because that would be fun, but that's another story. When I think about how it's evolved over the last 20 years, and even looking at myself, like, I'm a publicist dedicated in this industry who doesn't have cable, haven't bought a magazine in years. I only read the paper because my husband subscribes to it. So, I think about, like, is what I do relevant anymore? But when I consider actually the exact same strategies that I was using with Virgin Mobile and meeting Richard Branson like 15 years ago is what I'm doing with my clients today. We've just shifted where it's being positioned toward. So rather than spending time learning things that quite frankly won't matter in 3 years because they're going to be outdated, focus on what's a consistent practice that I can bring into each of these platforms, and then just do the smart thing over and over again, even though the place that I'm doing it is going to change. I don't know if I've ever gone on that big a rant before.
I love it. I love it. It's so true. It's so true. I love it. That's brilliant. So I get to scrap my next question. My next question is like, which outlet and platform offers the best return on investment?
You know what? No, I don't love cookie cutter answers, and so I don't have one to that. It really comes down to what is authentic for the person. Like, I love being on Instagram. I love scrolling through people's story. I love being nosy and a fly on the wall and what's going on in their lives. I could care less to post daily stories about what I'm doing. And I'm very cognizant that that's the world that we live in. And so I do my best to show up, every now and then to be like, I'm here, but it's just not authentic for me. I don't care. My wedding day a year ago, like, there is not a single Lisa posted this content because it was a big deal for her. It was all, I just reposted the stuff my friends captured. So for me, it's just not authentic. What is something I enjoy doing that I actually will do is have a conversation with somebody on podcast. So I'm paying attention to what feels good and authentic for me that I can literally do versus force myself to try and do on the regular. So even just lean into, what are your strengths? Yes, there are some things we all have to do that aren't necessarily our favorite, but what is the thing that is true for you? Because there is somebody who has built a business on TikTok. There's someone who's built a business using Pinterest. Someone's built a business using podcasts. Someone's built a business using earned media. Everything probably works, quite frankly, but what is the thing that works for you? What is the thing that feels good that you are actually going to do?
Love that. That is great. Great advice. I love that. And this is sort of like, this maybe goes hand in hand, is, in the space that we are, where everybody has a social media account, we're all walking billboards for ourselves, our products, and our services. What's your advice on how to brand yourself?
You know what? This is probably not the right answer, but I'm going to go with it anyways because it's what feels true for me. There's somebody who I totally admire, and her name is Jessica Zweig. She runs the Simply Be agency. When I think about what I would love my PR and visibility business to look like, it's just like hers. She has her agency, she has her courses, and then she has her books. I love her 3-tier system. And one thing that I was learning in her book called Be, she was talking about having your pillar content and what are kind of the 3 things that your content covers. I think about one of my girlfriends who left being a $400,000 a year plus mergers and acquisition lawyer in New York, who left that to become an Instagrammer. And when I know, right? Like, what did her parents think? What was going through her partner's head? She's loving it. She's so happy. It's totally working for her. I'm so impressed and inspired by what she did, leaving the safe 9 to 5 to do what she enjoys. And when she started her Instagram business, her content was around the 3 pillars of fashion, travel, repeat. And so everything she posted was about fashion, travel, fashion, travel, fashion, travel over and over again. There were certain areas of other aspects of her life, obviously, but people knew what to come to her for. So to have that definition of, okay, my content, of course, it's going to be about me in various areas of my life, but what are 3 things I'm going to be really dedicated to? So people instantly think of me when they come to that versus being someone who's all over the place.
Yes, I love that advice. That is great advice. And I saw this on your website, but I think I saw it somewhere, but I really, really, really love this distinction. I love the distinction between pitching for publicity and pitching for profit. What's the difference in the way you design and deliver stories to create the impact you want for each?
That's an interesting question. So when it comes to publicity and profit, I mean, I think they certainly can be one and the same. It's just coming down to what is the intention. So when it comes to pitching for publicity, period, it's cool to be published in a magazine or be on a television show. That's awesome. But like, what is the business goal we're trying to drive from it? Because I think that some people will pursue publicity, but they don't intentionally do it. And they're like, well, it's cool that I got on TV, but that didn't work. It didn't do the thing I needed it to do. So is the purpose of your visibility what I call them the ABCs of visibility when we're trying to figure out what's the intention for this visibility. Is the purpose to A, build awareness, which means getting in front of my ideal clients so that they know that I exist. So maybe it's not the kind of platform that I would necessarily tune into, but it's where my clients are going to get solutions to their problems. So there's their awareness. There's B, which stands for buzz. This is, are you about to launch a new program? Do you have a book coming out? You need a bunch of people to know about you at once. Obviously, getting that kind of buzz, similar to when a movie comes out, is going to generate interest in what you are putting out there. And of course, that can drive to the revenue, so can the awareness piece. When it comes to C, so A, awareness, B, buzz, C is credibility. Credibility building, we know that this isn't necessarily getting us in front of clients who are going to put money in our pockets today, but we're elevating our status. We're making sure that now our names are said in the same sentence as the people whose conferences we've attended, who we've hired as mentors, whose books and courses we've purchased. But I think through all of them, like as long as you're using it intentionally, that can lead to profit. Because even if you're thinking about the credibility perspective, you're turning yourself into a premium brand. Like when someone's looking to hire a life coach and you have, if let's say you had all the money in the world and your choices were Joe Blow or Tony Robbins, you're going to pick Tony Robbins. So building that credibility is a profit generating activity. When you're looking at getting awareness in front of your ideal clients, you're doing that so that you can build that and nurture a relationship with them. So when they're ready to hire, you're the person that you go to. So really, I think there can be one and the same. It's just a matter of using intention.
I love that. I love that. Really getting clear on your intention of what the action that you're going to do. That's awesome. What makes a good story for you?
I think that a good story leads with, I think it's going to have three things. Number one, it's going to lead with value. It's going to leave anybody who's paying attention to what you're saying richer than they came. Whether or not they decide to work with you in the future, whether or not they remember that segment, everyone's going to leave richer than they came, having paid attention to your content. I think a good story is also going to leave the person on the other side with two things. A short-term win, something that you're sharing with them that they could easily create within 5 to 10 minutes and be successful with. An example is when I go on podcasts and people are asking me about how to get visibility, I'll drop little things like go on Google and type in "write for us" plus your industry, "write for us nutrition," "write for us keto," and anyone who's listened to the podcast can do that Google search and find a bunch of websites that are looking for contributors. Hire me, don't hire me, download my freebie or not, like you have left with something that improves your life. So I'm leaving you richer than you came, and you've had something you could do in a matter of seconds that makes you feel successful. The third thing that I would say is having something of longer term that someone needs your support with. I can tell someone to go sign up for Help a Reporter Out or to do that Google search for "write for us." But when it comes to developing like an actual critical, thoughtful strategy of where they want their brand to be in a year, like I can't just spit that out in 5 minutes. I'm going to need some time. So to be able to help somebody leave richer than they came, get that ball of momentum rolling, but also still have that gap where you can step in to offer them support, I think that's going to be very powerful as well.
Oh, that was amazing. That was a masterclass right there.
And it all just authentically came off the top of my head. Did not even rehearse that one.
I love it. I love it. I feel called to ask you this question. I'm not asking everybody, but what story has made the biggest difference for you?
Like of my own, or someone else's that I heard?
Yeah.
What stories made the biggest difference for me? This one I'm going to really need to go through a catalog on.
Yeah. I mean, you did share the one about your friends. That was a great story, the one that left the mergers and acquisitions and killed it in Instagram. But
I think if I can, I don't know that this is the most powerful story that's ever stayed with me, but it certainly is one. Something I talked about earlier was when I was working with a speaking coach, and he was talking about the importance of telling stories so that from the beginning of your presentation, the audience can hear what you hear, feel what you feel, and see what you see. He was sharing a story about a woman named Leanna. I have no idea who Leanna is. I have never listened to Leanna talk, but he told the story about Leanna and how how she used to tell a story about she grew up poor. And he worked with her to transition that story from I grew up poor to my family got evicted. And we had a friend who said that we could live at their home for a while. And, I remember when we got out of the car and we were walking up towards the front steps of the home, he actually was like, oh no, come around the side of the house. So we went around the left side of the house to the backyard, and there was an abandoned chicken coop there. And like, as she's telling this story, I am walking up the stairs with her. I'm going around the side of the house with her. I'm imagining what her teenage face looks like, seeing that you're going to live in a chicken coop, what it smells like. So I actually have no idea who this person is, but the way that story was told has influenced how I always think about storytelling. I'm like, how can I bring someone into the chicken coop with me? So that's probably a very weird answer, because it's not like a deep, meaningful story. It's not from somebody who I know, but that really influenced the way that I tell story now, because there was such a difference between I grew up poor versus walking up the stairs and around the house with that person's story. So that's something I think about every time I'm moving into telling a story. Like, how can I make sure that the audience is right there with me and they're actually invested in this?
Love it. That was awesome. That was a perfect answer.
And now
Love
you'll
it.
always remember that random story too.
Yeah. Yes, totally. Amazing. Amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to add or share with the audience today?
You know what? Usually when I'm closing things off, the number one thing that I like to share is, if you're taking the time to invest in listening to these conversations, don't just like check it off and be like, wow, that was great. It's wonderful to leave inspired, but what's the action? Like, from every conversation that you're listening to, what is the thing that you can put into play? Because, if you're interviewing 10 speakers, 20 speakers, 30 speakers, and you're listening to those, if you took one tip from each of them, I can pretty much guarantee that 30 days from now, you're going to be in a significantly better place from where you are now, because of the action steps that you're taking. So don't just listen to these, actually put something into practice.
I love it. I love it, Lisa. Thank you so much. And thank you, because I know that you're offering the audience a download of perfect podcast pitch template. So that's going to be linked to on your page, and the email going out to everybody with the link to this interview. So thank you for sharing that with the audience, and thank you for being here. Thank you for dropping gold all over the place, and for your
Gladly.
generosity.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's been lovely to be a part of the conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, everybody, we have a Power of Story workshop coming up on October 24th. So keep an eye out for details on that. We've got more amazing interviews, so stay tuned, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.